There is no doubt that there is a widespread technical evolution happening all around us, and this had to do with containers. And we will, of course, go into what a container is, but we were talking about the history of Docker. Now, Solomon Hykes is the founder and CEO of DocCloud, or was the CEO of DocCloud, and he was the one that introduced at the Python Developers Conference in Santa Clara, California, on March 15, 2013, Docker. Now, it was in the days before Docker, containerization was not on the radar for most software professionals. Even the low-level concepts behind containers were generally understood only by those equipped with a deep knowledge of the Linux kernel or those working on some of the tech giants like Sun or Google. Windows developers and system administrators were generally left out in the cold. Nowadays, it is hard to have a conversation, especially if you are in the software industry or working on any software or mobile application, without mentioning of Docker. So we no longer use Docker because it is novel or for the sake of technology itself, but rather because it accelerates development cycles in software, reduces infrastructure cost and overhead. It also helps onboard new developers more quickly, and even lowers the wall between development and operations team. Windows users can also reap the benefits of Docker too, thanks to the work of Microsoft, Docker, and countless open source contributors, or OSS. Docker, of course, is not always a simple tool, and truly understanding Docker is necessary in order to build and operate cloud-native applications. Of course, the applications are going to be scalable and available and run on managed cloud infrastructures. We're always going to be talking about resiliency and scalability, and this requires to rely on containers and eventually container orchestration technologies such as Kubernetes if you're trying to work with clusters. In addition to these container tools, cloud-native applications are generally built with service-oriented or Microsoft microservice architectures. So some people always ask, is Docker, for example, going to replace virtual machines or VMs? If microservices are the requirement, or if companies should forget about Docker now, the serverless patterns are becoming more popular. And the answer is no. Tools in the cloud-native economy and ecosystem are additive and not exclusive. So Docker and VMs are not competing with one another, but instead they should be used together to achieve maximum benefit. Using Docker allows developers such as myself to expand operational responsibilities and take more ownership of what is built. We can normally remove the silos in your organization or in our organization by making details like dependencies a responsibility of the development team. Now we'll talk a little bit about Docker, but this course is aimed, of course, for those of you that are also beginners. If you're not a software engineer or a developer or a quality tester at an organization and you never heard about Docker before, you might have heard the name, but you don't really know what it stands for. We're gonna try to, in this course, to walk you little by little through what Docker is. There are some minimum requirements and things that, it will be good for you to have. There's books out there that you can add to the learning of what this course and videos are going to teach you, such as GitHub. There's several courses on GitHub. You can also go to github.com and also Git Bash. You can learn that. But I'm going to be using all those tools hands-on as I go through the videos, and so I think that will be good practice for you, and at least you will get a gist or a lot of the requirements of how to work with containers and how we use the repositories, the registries, how we use GitHub and Git Bash to be able to input commands. So we work with Docker together with that. So you're gonna learn all that as we go along. The main focus is going to get you to the point where you have a working Docker environment and steering you towards good choices that will support a robust production system. So we will learn how to build and test and deploy in this course. On the intermediate course, I will teach you how to debug Docker applications in both development and production. And we will do this through examples. And we also covered a few of the significant orchestration tools in the Docker ecosystem. So if you're a seasoned engineer, this course is not for you. This is more a course for somebody that has no practice or has barely heard about Docker, or for those junior engineers that are just beginning and maybe they just want a little refresher of definitions, tools, and how to make basic Docker commands. Now today, there are a lot of conversations and projects and articles in the internet about Docker. And there's a lot of information out there because Docker is a new technology that's evolving very quickly. Now Docker has become much more stable. There are different versions out there, and we don't suffer as much from the complete lack of tools, but there are a lot of different choices when you're working into a development and operations team and you have a certain workflow. So there's different choices on how to use Docker. Like there are different kinds of types of installations of Docker, and we'll also be covering some of that. We'll be covering how to install on Windows, how to install on Linux, and also we'll be talking about Ubuntu and other ways in which you can install Docker and how each way it is better for depending on the goals that you want to achieve as a developer. You have to learn and understand how it fits into your workflow and getting integration right. So when you finish this course, you should have enough information to understand what Docker is, why is it important, how to get it running, how to deploy your applications, and how to get it into production. And also along the way, you will learn how to use some of the tools, like I said, like Git Bash, the PowerShell. We might be working with some editors or some IDEs that you will have some practice and use it in practical applications. And also, of course, learn what is a repository, what is an image, what is a container. We're gonna go through all that. So working with Windows is completely different than working with Linux or Ubuntu, so we also be covering the different ways on how to install that. Let me click over here on the next slide. We also went through the Docker's promise. I know that some of these wording, if you're at the beginning, might be a little confusing. Pretty much what you're trying to do is, Docker is similar to a virtual machine, but it's not the same thing. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to create a tool in which you can, inside of a container, imagine a container, and we'll talk about what a container is. You want to put different applications or services inside of a container, and from there make it work and streamline the workflow of agile software organizations and teams. As we go along, we also will be giving you some codes or scripts examples so we can use through our exercises. Now, while viewed as a virtualization platform by people who are unfamiliar with Docker, it is far more than that. Docker's core domain spans a few crowded segments of the industry that include technologies like KVM, Xen, OpenStack, Mesos, Capistrano, Fabric, Ansible, Chef, Puppet, SaltStack, and so on. There is something very telling about the list of products that Docker competes with, and maybe you spot it already if you have worked already in the software industry. Most engineers will not say that virtualization products compete with configuration management tools, yet both technologies are being disrupted by Docker. This is largely because Docker alters the playing field, and this has a very direct impact on each of these traditionally isolated segments inside the developer or develop operations pipeline. If we were to compare feature by feature Docker with other individual areas, Docker will very likely look like a middle competitor. So it is stronger in some areas than others, but Docker brings to the table is a feature set that crosses a broad range of workflow challenges. And for those of you beginning, we're gonna talk a little bit about the cycle of production and the different cycle of software development and how where Docker stands on that. But for now, just to know that it is very easy and combined into an application development as a tool with other elements or other application virtualization systems.